With his trade from Sacramento still not finalized, is Jonas Valanciunas looking for a way out of Denver and the NBA as a whole? If that trade were to fall through, how would that change the outlook on the Denver Nuggets free agency so far? And what do we make of Nikola Jokic punting his extension signing off for one more offseason, even if it means he has potentially more money on the table? All things to come on today's rundown, but we will begin with a specific soon-to-be maybe member of the Denver Nuggets and Nikola Jokic, who, as it was announced yesterday, the question that was out there for all of about, 10 hours was, will Nikola Jokic, on the first day he would be eligible to do so, sign an extension with the Nuggets this offseason? He would have been eligible for 3 years and $206 million to tack on to the end of his current contract extension, which is guaranteed for the next 2 seasons and a player option after that. He has made it formally announced, thanks to Bennett Durando of the Denver Post, that he will not be doing that. And by doing so, he opens up the opportunity for him to sign a 4-year deal with an extra year on the term and access an extra $80 million roughly in guaranteed earnings. So from a business perspective, I think it made sense for the Nuggets to hope and maybe try to get him to sign an extension this offseason to lock things down at a little bit more of a cost-controlled rate and to make sure that their superstar in Denver is under contract as long as they possibly can. But from Jokic's perspective, it clearly makes business sense to wait and do this. Now, there are those who, I suppose, if they wanted to, put on a tinfoil hat or maybe stoke some fire a little bit, say that this is also potentially an ulterior motive for Jokic, in addition to the financial benefits that he would get by waiting, to say, you know what, I'm not 100% sure that I'm in love with the setup that we have here in Denver, where we have been bounced from the postseason in the second round in pretty brutal fashion for 2 years in a row. And the lack of depth around me and my starting five, if I'm speaking as Nikola Jokic, has been unsatisfactory, to say the least. And I've gone on record to point out several different teams around the league, including the reigning champion Oklahoma City Thunder, the Indiana Pacers, and others who can play 8, 9, or 10 deep into their bench rotation in the postseason. I don't have that. I want that. And I'm not 100% sure that it's been given to me quite yet. So by not waiting, or by not signing this extension and waiting one more offseason, basically putting him into the offseason before unrestricted free agency, he is essentially making it known that he doesn't quite feel that way, or at least not confirming and validating what the organization has done thus far. I will raise my hand and say I personally do not subscribe to that tinfoil hat theory. I think that purely overwhelmingly from a business perspective, if I was given the option to sign a piece of paper now that could give me $206 million over 3 years, or sign one next offseason where I'm going to be still under contract at least for one more season anyways, and that would allow me to have $80 million more in another year of guaranteed income and security, I do the exact same thing. So I understand the temptation and the urge maybe to look at Jokic, who has been the least dramatic, easiest going anti-NBA superstar that one could ask for up to this point in his career. And while he has been more vocal about his frustrations in recent years, and I don't want to take for granted necessarily this notion or this nature that he's just this easygoing, carefree guy and doesn't care and he's made more money than he knows what to do with, because I don't believe that. I believe Nikola Jokic is insanely competitive. And I think that that is what has driven him to get to this point in his life, to help bring this franchise their first title in their history. And to continue to try to chase that and not be fat and happy after achieving 3 MVPs, a finals MVP, and a Larry O'Brien trophy, to say, I want more, like he did at the podium after the eventual loss in the second round to the Oklahoma City Thunder, where he said that we are not good enough right now to win a championship. We are not deep enough. And you look at these other teams around the league and what they're able to do with their bench and come wave after wave after wave to keep their guys fresh and hungry. We don't have that. And I clearly want that. So I believe that that is where Nikola Jokic stands. And I believe that he is motivated, if anything, by pure financial reasons to wait one more offseason, sign this extension to get himself more money and more years for an extra year and an extra $80 million in potential income, of which he's earned and is worth every penny. And then you couple that with the moves that Ben Tenzer and Jonathan Wallace have made so far in NBA free agency, where even with the Jonas Valanciunas trade up in the air, they have been the splashiest, sexiest, and most aggressive team, arguably, in free agency thus far. Porter Jr. out of town to bring Cam Johnson in from the Brooklyn Nets, which became official in the last day or so. Bruce Brown, bringing back that vital sixth man presence in Brucey B, who is a key presence in physical on-ball defense and shooting ability off of that bench unit in the playoffs, bringing him back for a second stint here in Denver. Bringing in Tim Hardaway, who is going to be an absolute sharpshooter off the bench and somebody that can help space the floor for the Nuggets and provide bench scoring to survive the non-Jokic minutes, which has been easier said than done in recent years. All of those things, coupled with the Jonas Valanciunas trade that's still not quite finalized yet, all those things to me, based on what Brian Windhorst has been told secondhand, which he's reported for ESPN, that Jokic has been happy with those things. Very happy, very pleased, I believe was the exact quote. So Jokic's competitive drive, the financial advantages of waiting another year, and all the moves that the Nuggets have made so far in free agency during the offseason tell me that I don't see Jokic being disgruntled enough or frustrated enough or not heard or seen enough to punt on this extension for passive aggressive or leverage purposes to use against Denver more so than it is just what more can he gain personally. We will see how it shakes out. And if we're having this same conversation in the middle of next offseason and there's still not there's still some murkiness as to where Jokic stands with his extension, then it could get, time to maybe ring some bells a little bit and see what's going on. Speaking of what's going on, we got some clarity from the man himself on the Jonas Valanciunas, Dario Saric swap between the Sacramento Kings and the Denver Nuggets, satisfying on paper or in principle what has been a plaguing issue for the Nuggets that they have not been able to solve in a meaningful way in some time, maybe even before the COVID-19 season, and that is a reliable backup big, a backup five to play behind Jokic and potentially alongside Jokic at times, and provide him helpful minutes off the bench, provide more size in the paint to help him distribute in different ways and not be so reliant on kicking things out for three-point shooting, and to be a presence that buoys across the regular season and says we can take a little bit of a burden off of Nikola Jokic, where he has shouldered so much for so many years now. On paper, it satisfied all of those things, bringing in Jonas Valanciunas in his early 30s, who has never won a championship, came close. He was on that Toronto Raptors team that won the title in 2019 with Kawhi Leonard, but he got shipped off prior to them winning it all and has not received a ring for that. So you have a older veteran, but not insanely old player in Jonas Valanciunas, who plays at a position of underrated need for your team if you're the Denver Nuggets. And all seems to be great until things start to blow up with this potential interest in courting overseas from the Greek basketball powerhouse Panathinaikos. And then you start to dive into the weird intricacies of the NBA world, where these international players have an international agent as well as an NBA agent. Nikola Jokic is no exception. And potential lapses in communication between the two, where Jonas and his agent, his international agent, maybe have communicated things or promises to Panathinaikos that were not communicated in any way to the Denver Nuggets, nor his American agent, who represents a significant portion of the Nuggets roster. And now you have a divide where two teams feel like they've been misled, and the frustration that ensues. Well, Jonas Valanciunas was in the Eastern European region overseas, making an appearance as a part of a tour that he's been doing. And he spoke on this issue for the first time. When asked about all the trade speculation, he said this: "You can say anything. A lot has been said, all kinds of thoughts. The bubble burst. Everyone shared what everyone thinks. We'll only find out when the first game is played. Everything will be clear." That's a little weird, right? That doesn't sound, if I'm Panathinaikos or Denver in this situation, I'm hearing that quote or reading that transcript going, the hell does that mean? Everything will be clear. We won't know until the first game is played. Is he going to have like a WWE style pop and come out of the tunnel to, some Lithuanian music and when they're announcing the starting five, and that's when we'll know if he's playing for the Nuggets or not? Obviously, that's hyperbolic and a little bit of an exaggeration. But even when speaking on the potential next steps, Jonas Valanciunas was equally kind of vague and cryptic with his message. He said, "When the trade is finalized, we'll come up with a plan. They, the Nuggets, will express their wishes, how they think, how they see it, medical, other details. That will depend on the team. When the trade is finalized, we'll come up with a plan." So that inherently says right there, if we want to break it down piece by piece, that he expects the trade to be finalized, both teams to work it out, and then hope for, if he wants to play overseas, hope for a buyout or a release of that contract, and the team can recoup their money, which is something that Jonathan Wallace and Ben Tenzer have made pretty openly clear they have no intention or desire to do. So we'll come up with a plan. They, the Nuggets, will express what they want, how they see it, how they this, and then, all these other factors will come into play, and that'll depend on the team. This just doesn't sound like a guy that necessarily wants to play or has any interest in playing for the Nuggets or in the NBA in general. And that has got to be a really frustrating series of question and answers or transcripts to read if I'm Jonathan Wallace, Ben Tenzer, Josh Kroenke, hell, Nikola Jokic, or any members of the current Nuggets, because this is a guy who can satisfy a significant position of need, in my opinion, that this team has not had a good answer for, and provide an answer to a problem that has been a chief reason why the Nuggets can't get past the second round in the postseason, and that is exhaustion, fatigue, health issues as a result of relying so much on the starting five, the heavy five, as they were referred to at times last season. Jonas Valanciunas provides a reasonable solution to that problem as someone who still has gas left in the tank and has not won a title, could play alongside the best player in the world, in my opinion, in Nikola Jokic, and get paid north of $10 million to not have to bear a starting role in the NBA. But when I hear those comments, it does make me kind of turn my head a little bit and say, boy, this doesn't really feel like somebody who's waffling 50-50 on what they want to do. This feels like somebody who wants to play in Greece, made that clear to his international agent, who may or may not have made promises to Panathinaikos, and just didn't think to communicate that in any way to his American agent, nor the Nuggets before, during, or after the trade process until it was too late, and kind of the situation we're in now. Sticky. That is a sticky situation. So in summary of the Nuggets conversation that we've had so far today, on the topic of Nikola Jokic, I'm not concerned about the fact that he hasn't signed or won't sign his contract extension this summer. I understand maybe the hesitancy, the Chicken Little mentality that might put the finger on the button and say, ooh, I don't know, if Nikola Jokic is unhappy, it's going to be an ugly future for the Nuggets. That is true. Nikola Jokic leaving Denver on good terms or bad terms will be devastating to the Nuggets franchise to a degree where they may not recover in any kind of significant way for a period of time. And I don't think we should take for granted that he's just this easygoing, happy-go-lucky, aloof horse racing, basketball phenom that just doesn't care or doesn't have the competitive drive or the edge to get frustrated about things that aren't necessarily up to the par that he wants it. Because I don't think that's true either. But I do think that the moves that Ben Tenzer and Jonathan Wallace have made as a front office in their inaugural NBA free agency period and offseason have done more than enough to show the seriousness and the level of commitment that they have as an organization to putting the pieces around Nikola Jokic that he feels he needs to bring this team back to an NBA Finals and competing for a championship. He laid out the needs after the loss to the Thunder in that second round series, and by slicing off a member of the core four in Michael Porter Jr. to free up money and bring in a comparable player in Cam Johnson, maybe a better player, at least in my opinion. Bringing back Bruce Brown, who was a key member of the title team in a role that they have not been able to fill since he left. Bringing in a veteran off-ball shooter like Tim Hardaway Jr., who can hit from beyond the arc at a rate that they sorely need, and somebody who can help space the floor as Jokic continues to kind of orchestrate things on the offensive side. And then this pending up in the air Jonas Valanciunas trade that we still don't know where exactly it's going to land. All of those moves, plus the financial sense that it makes for Jokic to just wait, has me not concerned and has this as a little bit more of a nothing burger when it comes to Jokic and where and when he will put pen to paper here in Denver. On the Valanciunas trade, as I mentioned earlier, my ultimate prevailing thought is this is kind of sticky. This is a weird situation where the more that comes out from local and national reporting on the dynamics of this trade, when you have an international agent and an American agent, and your American agent represents a significant portion of the Nuggets roster, how the desire to play overseas for Panathinaikos specifically was communicated to his international agent, and promises potentially may or may not have been made to Panathinaikos via Valanciunas and his international agent, none of which were communicated with his American agent, nor the Denver Nuggets, who shipped off an asset, albeit a easy one to ship off, in Dario Saric in his terrible contract, but shipped out assets to bring this guy in to fill a clear need, and watched other aspects of free agency or other members that they could have targeted go off the board. They want this guy. And it seems more and more like he is trying to communicate in the best way possible that he doesn't want to be there. And times could change. Waters could smooth out. Things could chill just a little bit. But for right now, this Valanciunas thing seems sticky and messy. And I'm not 100% sure what the Nuggets can do if he ultimately just doesn't want to be here and wants to stick his foot in the sand on that particular issue. Plenty of months left in time in NBA free agency for things to pivot and twist and change. We will be here to chronicle it all for you. Make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on all our social media channels at DenverSports 1043, at DenverSports 1043, and we will catch you at the same time in the same place tomorrow. I do what I love what I do. Second nature to put in the work.